Okay, yesterday we covered the law of sines, and today we're going to cover law of cosine. Law of cosine. Oh, that's not how you spell it. Law of cosine. And there's an S there. Law of cosines. And let's just say this. Law of cosines is used when law of sine won't work. And remember, yesterday I assigned you those problems, and then I had to change the assignment. That's an example of when you would use law of cosines instead of law of sines. There were some problems where there wasn't enough information. When you wrote the proportion for law of sines, you had two blanks, or you had two variables. And in a proportion, you can only solve for one variable. All right, you have to have three constants, and you can solve for one variable. So this is going to seem kind of crazy when you write it down, but it's actually, once you notice the pattern, it's easy to memorize. So law of cosines for any triangle ABC starts just like law of sines with sides A, B, and C. That means the sides opposite the angles are just the lowercase version of the description of the angle. For any triangle ABC with sides lowercase abc, a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cosine of A. Now watch the pattern. B squared is going to be equal to a squared plus c squared minus 2 times AC, or 2 times A times C, times the cosine of B. You see the pattern? Okay, so C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared, 2 times the two letters that are on the right hand side, A times B, times cosine of the letter that's on the left side of the equal sign, which is C. So really, you just have to remember this one. And I think once you can write that one down or memorize that one, well, then you could just adjust for the other two. So here's how it works. You're going to be asked to solve the triangle. And if you're given triangle ABC, angle A is 62 degrees. Side AC is 9. And AB is 14. If it helps, and I'm sure it will, label the sides. The side opposite the 62 is your lowercase a. The side opposite angle B is your lowercase b, and the 14 side is your lowercase c. So if you look at this diagram and you think law of sines, you've got sine of an angle over its opposite side, you're missing the opposite side, equals sine of an angle over its opposite side. Well, you're missing that angle. You don't have enough information for law of sines. You're going to have two variables. So you're going to use the law of cosines. And in this case, I would find side A first because you're given the angle opposite of A. Okay? So here's the formula. A squared is equal to B squared, which is 9 squared plus 14 squared, minus 2 times B times C, right? So minus 2 times 9 times 14 times cosine of A, which is cosine 62. Now, somebody take this and type it in just like it is, please. Meaning you could type 9x squared button plus 14x squared button, hit equals, minus 2 times 9 times 14 times 62 cosine.
What do you want us to round it to?
Let me think for a second. Right now, find each measure, round lengths to the nearest tenth, and angle measures to the nearest degree. So A squared, if you type that into the calculator just the way it is, do you get 158.69?
I don't even know how you typed it. What?
All right.
I got 11.7.
Okay, so then the calculator did not follow order of operations. And if that's the case, then look, here's what has to happen. In this part, I know that this part has to get done first. And then you can subtract all of this. So do in your calculator 9x squared plus 14x squared and hit equals. And you should have a 277 there. You should have a 277 there. Then you're going to subtract, and in your calculator do this whole portion. 2 times 9 times 14 times 62 cosine and hit equals.
Oh yeah, 158.
118.306. So then you could go, not out loud, William, please. So then 277 minus 118.306. And A squared is equal to 158.694. If that's the case, you have to find the square root of both sides. So A is equal to, push the square root button, 12.59 rounded to the nearest tenth would be 12.6. Let me say that again. You can type all of this in. Just make sure to put parentheses here and parentheses here. And then you can square both sides. Okay? So now what you have is that triangle where you know 3 of the sides. You're missing two of the angles. But if you find one of the angles, you can find the other one by subtracting from 180. So now you can use law of sines, which is what you did yesterday. And if we use law of sines to solve for angle B, your proportion would be sine of angle B over its opposite side, which is 9, equals sine of angle A, so sine 62 over 12.6. If you crisscross multiply 12.6 times sine of B is going to be equal to 9 times sine 62. If you divide both sides by 12.6, now, if you look up, if you're caught up, if you watch, if the sine of B equals 9 sine 62 divided by 12.6, doesn't this value in parentheses of sine -1 give you the angle measure? So technically you can save yourself a bunch of time here. All right? If the sine of B equals what's in parentheses, we did this last week, if sine of B is equal to this, then the measure of angle B is equal to sine -1 of all this. So you can save yourself a lot of time. So 9 times 62 sine equals, divided by 12.6 equals, and then you can push second sine. And you should get 39.1, so it's 39 degrees. Anybody get 39 degrees? Okay, so now, if you're solving this triangle, you go back, angle B is 39 degrees. So take 180, subtract 39 and 62. So angle C is 79 degrees. So since you didn't have enough information to use law of sines in the first step, then you use law of cosines. Once you had that third side, or once you had all three sides and one angle measure, you can find a second angle measure using law of sines. Does that make any sense? Okay, then I want you to practice today, page 571. There's 4 problems down there on the bottom right. 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D. So 3A through 3D. Just write this down right now. They're only asking you for one thing on each problem. That's okay. Here, I'm just going to give you the answers now. Let's do this. Because you got to be able to do these and see if you're doing them right. So 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D. 3A, they're asking for DE, and it's 6.5. And on 3B, they're asking for the measurement. That's 30 degrees. And 3C is 7.0. And 3D is 65 degrees. So try each of these and see if you can get the right answer. If you don't get the answers that I've given, then you need to ask somebody, or I would ask me what you did wrong. And then you can fix it before your study guide and before your quiz on Friday. It's kind of the goal.